Jake Martinez walked slowly down the empty street. His boots made soft sounds on the old sidewalk. The street lights cast long shadows everywhere. It was past midnight, and most people in the neighborhood were sleeping. Jake was tired. He had worked late at the car repair shop again. His hands were still dirty with oil and grease. His back hurt from bending over car engines all day. All he wanted was to get home, take a hot shower, and sleep. The night air was cool. Jake pulled his jacket tighter around his body. He lived in a quiet part of Phoenix, Arizona. Not many cars drove through this area at night. The houses were small and old, but the people who lived here were good neighbors. As Jake walked past Miller's grocery store, he heard a strange sound. It was like someone clicking their tongue, but different. The sound came from the dark alley behind the store. Jake stopped walking and listened. Click, 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 click. The sound came again. It was not like any animal Jake knew. It was not like a person either. Jake looked at the alley. It was very dark back there. The street light did not reach that far. Jake thought about walking home. He was tired, and strange sounds at night could mean trouble. But something about the sound made him curious. It sounded sad, like someone or something was hurt. Jake walked toward the alley. He pulled out his phone and turned on the flashlight. The light cut through the darkness. He saw garbage, cans and old boxes. Then he saw something that made him stop breathing. A small creature sat behind one of the garbage cans. It was about 3 feet tall, smaller than a child. Its skin was blue, like the color of deep water. The skin seemed to shine a little in the phone light. The creature had large golden eyes that looked up at Jake with fear. The creature wore some kind of suit. The suit looked like it was made of metal, but it was torn and damaged. Silver liquid dripped from a cut on the creature's arm. Jake realized the silver liquid was blood. Jake stood very still. His heart beat fast in his chest. He had never seen anything like this creature before. It was clearly not human. It was not from Earth. The creature made the clicking sound again. It was trying to move away from Jake, but it was hurt. It could not stand up properly. Its golden eyes never left Jake's face. Jake knew he should be scared. He knew he should run away and call the police. But when he looked at the creature, all he saw was pain and fear. The creature was hurt and alone, just like any injured animal would be. Jake slowly got down on one knee. He put his phone on the ground so the light still shone on the creature. He held up his hands to show he had no weapons. "Hey there," Jake said softly. "I'm not going to hurt you." The creature tilted its head. It did not understand English, but it seemed to understand Jake's gentle tone. The clicking sounds became quieter. Jake looked at the cut on the creature's arm. The silver blood was flowing steadily. The creature would get worse if the bleeding did not stop soon. Jake had learned first aid when he was younger. He always carried a small medical kit in his work bag. He slowly reached for his bag and pulled out some clean cloth and medical tape. "Let me help you," Jake said. He moved very slowly so he would not scare the creature. The creature watched Jake's every move. When Jake reached toward the injured arm, the creature pulled back. But Jake kept talking in a calm voice. He showed the creature the clean cloth. "This will help stop the bleeding," Jake said. "I promise I won't hurt you." Something in Jake's voice seemed to calm the creature. It slowly held out its injured arm. Jake carefully cleaned the cut and wrapped it with the cloth. The creature made soft clicking sounds, but they did not sound like pain anymore. As Jake worked, he noticed more things about the creature. Its skin was smooth and warm. Its eyes were very intelligent. The metal suit had strange symbols on it that Jake had never seen before. When Jake finished bandaging the arm, The creature looked at him with its large golden eyes. It made a different sound, like a musical note. Jake thought it might be saying, "Thank you." Jake sat back on his heels. He did not know what to do next. The creature was clearly not from Earth. It needed help, but Jake did not know what kind of help to give. The creature tried to stand up. It was still weak, but the bandage had helped. It pointed up at the night sky and made more clicking sounds. Jake thought it was trying to tell him something about where it came from. Jake made a decision. He could not leave the creature alone in the alley. It was hurt and lost. Jake would not leave a hurt dog alone, and he would not leave this creature alone either. "Come with me," Jake said. He stood up slowly. "My apartment is not far. You can rest there." The creature seemed to understand. It tried to walk, but stumbled. Jake gently helped it stand. The creature was light, like a child. Jake supported it as they walked out of the alley. The walk to Jake's apartment took 10 minutes. The creature leaned on Jake the whole way. No one else was on the streets to see them. Jake was glad about that. He did not know how to explain what he was doing. Jake's apartment was small and simple. He helped the creature sit on his old couch. The creature looked around with curiosity. Everything was new and strange to it. Jake brought water and some simple food. The creature sniffed the food, but did not eat it. It did drink a little water. Jake sat in a chair across from the couch and watched his strange guest. The creature's golden eyes met Jake's brown eyes. For a moment, they just looked at each other. Two very different beings, but both understanding that something important was happening. Jake did not know that this moment would change everything. He did not know that his simple act of kindness would soon bring massive spaceships to his neighborhood. He did not know that he had just helped someone very important. All Jake knew was that a small creature had needed help, and he had given. In his mind, that was what any good person would do. He had no idea that this choice would make him the most important human on Earth. Jake woke up to the sound of screaming. At first, he thought he was dreaming, but the screaming got louder and more people joined in. Jake opened his eyes and looked around his small apartment. The couch was empty. The small blue creature was gone. Jake sat up quickly and looked around the room. There was no sign that the creature had ever been there. The only proof was the empty water glass on his coffee table. Jake rubbed his eyes. Maybe it had all been a dream. Maybe he had been so tired that his mind had played tricks on him. But the water glass was real, and he could still remember the feeling of helping the injured creature. More screaming came from outside. Jake heard his neighbor, Mrs. Betty Campbell, shouting something about the sky. Jake got out of bed and walked to his window. He pulled back the old curtains and looked outside. Jake's mouth fell open. He could not believe what he was seeing. 5 huge spaceships floated in the air above his street. They were enormous, bigger than any building Jake had ever seen. Each ship was dark gray and covered with strange shapes that might have been weapons. The ships made no sound, but they blocked out most of the morning sun. The ships were so big that they cast shadows over the entire neighborhood. Jake's street looked dark, even though it was daytime. The ships just hung there in the air, not moving, like they were waiting for something. Jake pressed his face against the window glass. He could see his neighbors running out of their houses. Some people were pointing at the sky and shouting. Others were running to their cars, trying to drive away. But Jake could see that the roads were already blocked by military vehicles. Mrs. Campbell stood in her front yard in her pink bathrobe. She was pointing at the ships and yelling at her husband to come outside. Mr. Campbell came out of their house carrying a baseball bat, as if that would help against spaceships. Jake heard helicopters in the distance. Soon, military helicopters appeared around the edges of the huge ships. The helicopters looked like tiny flies next to the massive alien vessels. News helicopters came too, but they all stayed far away from the ships. Jake's phone started ringing. He looked at the screen and saw it was his sister calling from California. He answered the phone. "Jake, are you okay?" His sister Linda asked. Her voice sounded scared. "The news is showing spaceships over your neighborhood. They're saying it's happening all over the world." "All over the world?" Jake asked. He was still staring at the ships outside his window. "Yes, London, Tokyo, Moscow, everywhere. But the biggest ships are over your street in Phoenix. Jake, what's going on? Are you safe?" Jake did not know what to say. He thought about the small, blue creature he had helped last night. Could this be connected? It seemed impossible, but Jake could not ignore the timing. "I'm okay," Jake told his sister. "I'll call you back later." Jake hung up and got dressed quickly. He wanted to go outside and see what was happening. But when he opened his front door, 2 soldiers in green uniforms were waiting for him. "Jake." "Martinez?" one of the soldiers asked. "Yes," Jake said. "Colonel Price wants to speak with you. Please come with us." Jake did not argue. He followed the soldiers down his street. All around him, his neighbors were being put into military trucks. The soldiers were not rough, but they were not taking no for an answer. Everyone was being moved away from the area. The soldiers brought Jake to a command center that had been set up in the parking lot of the elementary school. There were military vehicles everywhere. Soldiers were setting up equipment and talking on radios. In the center of it all was a tall man in an Air Force uniform. "Mr. Martinez," the man said when Jake approached. "I'm Colonel Nathan Price. We need to talk." Colonel Price led Jake into a large military tent. Inside the tent were computers, screens, and several people in both military uniforms and civilian clothes. One woman in a white coat was looking at something under a microscope. "Mr. Martinez," Colonel Price said, "we have reason to believe you had contact with an alien being last night. Is that correct?" Jake hesitated. He did not want to lie, but he also did not want to get in trouble. "How do you know that?" he asked. "Those ships up there." Colonel Price pointed toward the ceiling of the tent. "They're scanning this entire area, but they're focusing most of their attention on your apartment building. We've detected energy signatures that suggest alien technology was present in your home." The woman in the white coat looked up from her microscope. "Colonel, I'm Dr. Lisa Morgan. I study alien life forms for the government. We found traces of a substance on your doorknob that's not from Earth. It matches the silver liquid we found in the alley behind Miller's grocery store." Jake realized there was no point in lying. These people already knew most of the truth. "Yes," he said. "I found a small creature in the alley last night. It was hurt. I helped it and brought it to my apartment." Colonel Price sat down across from Jake. "Tell us everything that happened. Don't leave out any details." Jake told them the whole story. He described finding the creature, bandaging its wound, and bringing it to his apartment. He told them about the creature's blue skin, golden eyes, and the strange clicking sounds it made. "Did it give you anything?" Dr. Morgan asked. "Any device or object?" Jake remembered something. "Yes, before it left, it touched my forehead. Then I could understand what it was saying in my mind. It said thank you, and that it was a scout. It said its name was Zeph, and it left something behind." Jake pulled the small crystal device from his pocket. He had found it on his coffee table that morning. The crystal was about the size of a marble, but it seemed to glow with its own light. Doctor Morgan's eyes went wide when she saw the crystal. "Colonel, this is incredible. The energy readings from this device are off the charts. It's more advanced than anything we've ever seen." Colonel Price took the crystal carefully. "Mr. Martinez, you may have just made first contact with an alien species. And now they've come back." As if responding to his words, a loud sound came. from outside the tent. It was not exactly a voice, but it filled the air around them. The sound was being broadcast from the ships above. Everyone in the tent stopped what they were doing and listened. The sound changed and became words in perfect English. "People of Earth," the voice said, "we are the Valderon Empire. We seek the human called Jake Martinez. He aided one of our scouts when he could have ignored our warrior's need. This act has been noted. We require his presence to discuss what happens next." The tent became very quiet. Everyone was looking at Jake. Colonel Price's face was serious. "Mr. Martinez," Colonel Price said, "it appears they want to talk to you specifically. But let me be clear about something. The decision of whether or not to go with them is yours to make. No one will force you to do anything." Jake looked around the tent at all the faces staring at him. Outside, he could hear people shouting and car horns honking. The whole world was probably watching his neighborhood on television right now. Jake thought about the small creature named Zeph. He remembered the fear in its golden eyes and how grateful it had seemed when Jake helped it. He thought about how scared it must have been, alone and hurt in a strange place. Now Jake was the one who was scared, but he was also curious. The aliens had come all this way to talk to him. They could have just taken him if they wanted to. Instead, they were asking, "What do you think they want?" Jake asked Colonel Price. "I don't know," the colonel admitted. "But Mr. Martinez, those ships up there have enough firepower to destroy this entire city. Maybe this whole country. If they wanted to hurt us, they could have done it already. The fact that they're talking instead of shooting might be a good sign." Dr. Morgan was still studying the crystal device. "Jake," she said, "this device has been recording everything since last night. It recorded your entire interaction with their scout. They know exactly how you treated their injured warrior." Jake understood. The aliens had watched him help Zeph. They had seen that he asked for nothing in return, and that he had been kind to a stranger who was very different from him. Outside the tent, the alien voice spoke again. "Jake Martinez, we will wait for your answer. But know that what you decide will affect not just you, but all of your kind." Jake felt the weight of those words. Somehow, his simple act of helping an injured creature had put him at the center of something much bigger than he had ever imagined. The fate of humanity might depend on what he decided to do next. Jake sat in the military tent for 2 hours, thinking about what to do. Colonel Price had given him time to make his decision, but Jake could feel everyone watching him. The weight of the choice pressed down on him like a heavy blanket outside. More military vehicles arrived every few minutes. Jake could hear soldiers shouting orders and equipment being moved around. The alien ship still hung in the sky above his neighborhood, silent and waiting. Dr. Morgan was working with the crystal. Device Zeph had left behind. She had connected it to several computers and was studying the information it contained. Every few minutes, she would look up at Jake with amazement in her eyes. "Jake," she said, "this device recorded everything that happened last night. But it's more than just a recording. It's like a complete analysis of your character. It measured your heart rate, your stress levels, your brain activity. It studied every choice you made and every emotion you felt." Jake did not like the sound of that. "So they were testing me?" "Not testing," Dr. Morgan said. "Observing. This device shows that you were genuinely kind to their scout. You didn't help him because you wanted something in return. You helped him because it was the right thing to do." Colonel Price came back into the tent, carrying a tablet computer. His face looked worried. "Jake, we need to talk about what's happening around the world. The situation is getting worse." The colonel showed Jake the screen of his tablet. It displayed a map of the world with red dots marking locations. There were red dots over every major city on Earth. These are the locations of alien ships, Colonel Price explained. They appeared at the same time as the ones above your street. London, Tokyo, New York, Moscow, Beijing, Sydney. Every major city has alien warships above it. Jake felt sick, too. His stomach. How many ships are there? Over 200, Colonel Price said, and they're all waiting. None of them have made any aggressive moves, but they're clearly showing us their power. If they wanted to attack, they could destroy every major city on Earth in minutes. The colonel switched to a news channel on his tablet. Jake could see reporters standing in front of famous landmarks with alien ships floating above them. The Eiffel Tower in Paris had a ship hovering over it. The Statue of Liberty in New York was in the shadow of an enormous alien vessel. World leaders are panicking, Colonel Price continued. Some want to surrender immediately. Others want to fight. But everyone agrees on one thing. They want to know why the aliens are asking for you specifically. Jake watched the news coverage. He saw people running in the streets, military vehicles everywhere, and politicians making speeches. All of this was happening because he had helped a small injured creature in an alley. "What do you think I should do?" Jake asked. "I can't make that choice for you," Colonel Price said. "But I can tell you what we know. These aliens call themselves the Valderon Empire. Our computer experts have been trying to learn about them. What we found is not good news." Dr. Morgan looked up from her work. The crystal device contained some information about their civilization. The Valderons are a military empire. They have conquered many planets and destroyed civilizations that oppose them. They are very powerful and very dangerous. Jake felt even worse. So they're here to conquer us? Maybe, Colonel Price said. But here's the strange part. They could have just attacked without warning. Instead, they're talking. They're asking for you specifically. That suggests they might be willing to negotiate. The alien voice spoke again from outside the tent. This time, it was different. The voice was deeper and more commanding. "I am Admiral Kekstar of the Valderon Empire," the voice said. "I speak now to the leaders of this world. We have watched your species for many cycles. We have seen your wars, your violence, your cruelty to your own kind. We came here to judge whether your species deserves to exist." Jake and everyone in the tent stopped what they were doing and listened carefully. "But one of your kind showed mercy to our scout," the voice continued. "Jake Martinez helped our warrior when he could have captured him or sold him to your governments. He asked for nothing in return. This act of kindness has given us pause." Colonel Price grabbed Jake's arm. "They were going to destroy us," he whispered. "But you helping their scout changed their minds." The alien voice spoke again. "Jake Martinez, you have one day to decide. Come aboard our ship and speak for your species. Show us that humans can be more than the violent creatures we have observed. If you refuse, or if you fail to convince us, we will do what we came here to do." The voice stopped speaking. The silence that followed was terrible. Jake could hear his own heartbeat in his ears. "What does that mean?" Jake asked. "What did they come here to do?" Colonel Price looked at the tablet again. "Based on what we know about their empire, they came here to either conquer us or wipe us out. They've done it to other species before." Dr. Morgan stood up from her computers. "Jake, the crystal device shows more information about their civilization. They believe that violent species are a threat to the galaxy. They eliminate civilizations that they think are too dangerous." Jake felt dizzy. "And they think humans are too dangerous?" "Yes," Colonel Price said. "They've been watching us for decades. They've seen our wars, our weapons, our history of violence. They decided we were a threat that needed to be removed. But then I helped their scout," Jake said. "Exactly," Dr. Morgan said. Your act of kindness was the first time they saw a human show mercy to a complete stranger. It made them question their judgment about our species. Jake walked to the entrance of the tent and looked outside. The alien ship still hung in the sky, dark and menacing. But now he understood what they represented. They were not just weapons. They were judges, jury, and executioner for the entire human race. So if I go with them, Jake said, I have to convince them that humans are worth saving? That's what it sounds like, Colonel Price said. But Jake, we don't know what they'll do to you. This could be a trap. They might just want to capture you. Jake thought about Zeph, the small blue creature he had helped. Zeph had seemed genuinely grateful for Jake's kindness. If Zeph was part of this empire, maybe there was hope that they could be reasoned with. What happens if I don't go? Jake asked. Colonel Price looked at his tablet again. Based on their message, they'll carry out their original plan. They'll destroy human civilization. Jake looked around the tent at all the people watching him. These were smart people, military, officers and scientists. But none of them could make this decision for him. The fate of every person on Earth was in his hands. I need to think about this, Jake said. Of course, Colonel Price said. But Jake, remember that you have less than 24 hours to decide. Jake went to sit by himself in a corner of the tent. He thought about his sister Linda in California, about his neighbors like Mrs. Campbell, about all the people he had seen on the news. All of them were depending on him to make the right choice. He thought about Zeph again. The small creature had been afraid and hurt, but Jake had helped him anyway. Now Jake was the one who was afraid. But maybe, just maybe, if he was brave enough to face the aliens, he could help save everyone. Jake had never thought of himself as a hero. He was just a mechanic who fixed cars and minded his own business. But sometimes, ordinary people had to do extraordinary things. And sometimes, the smallest act of kindness could change everything. Jake made his decision. He would go with the aliens. He would try to convince them that humans deserved a chance to prove they could be better. It was the scariest thing he had ever done, but it was also the most important. The fate of humanity was about to be decided by a conversation between a mechanic from Phoenix and the admiral of an alien empire. Jake just hoped he could find the right words to save his world. Jake stood on the roof of his apartment building at exactly noon. Colonel Price and Dr. Morgan stood beside him, along with several soldiers. The alien ships hung in the sky above them, closer now than they had been before. Are you sure about this? Colonel Price asked one more time. Jake nodded. His mouth was dry and his hands were shaking, but his mind was made up. If I don't go, they'll destroy everything. At least this way, there's a chance. A golden beam of light suddenly appeared. Around Jake, he felt his feet lift off the roof. The light was warm and did not hurt, but Jake's stomach dropped as he rose into the air. He looked down and saw Colonel Price and Dr. Morgan getting smaller below him. The beam carried Jake up toward the largest alien ship. As he got closer, he could see how massive it really was. The ship was like a floating city, covered with strange patterns and shapes that might have been weapons or engines. Jake felt very small as the light pulled him toward an opening in the bottom of the ship. Jake floated through the opening and found himself in a large room inside the ship. The golden light faded, and his feet touched the floor. The floor was made of some kind of smooth metal that felt warm under his shoes. 2 tall aliens were waiting for him. They looked similar to Zeph, with blue skin and golden eyes, but they were much bigger. They wore dark armor that covered most of their bodies. Jake could see weapons attached to their belts. Human Jake Martinez, one of the aliens said in perfect English. Follow us. Admiral Kextar is waiting. Jake followed the 2 guards through corridors that seemed to go on forever. The inside of the ship was incredible. The walls glowed with soft light, and Jake could see strange symbols and pictures that probably showed the history of the alien empire. That other aliens walked through the corridors. Some looked like Zeph, but others were different. Jake saw aliens with green skin, aliens with 4 arms, and aliens that looked like giant insects. All of them stared at Jake as he passed by. "How many different species are in your empire?" Jake asked one of his guards. "Many," the guard replied. "Admiral Kekstar has conquered 17 star systems. Each system had different species. Some joined us willingly. Others were forced to join. A few were destroyed because they were too dangerous." Jake's heart sank. He was walking through a ship full of conquered peoples. How many civilizations had the Valderons destroyed? How many species had they wiped out completely? The guards brought Jake to a huge door made of black metal. Strange symbols covered the door, probably alien writing. The door opened silently, and Jake walked into the largest room he had ever seen. The room was enormous, bigger than a football stadium. The walls were covered with weapons, flags, and what looked like trophies from conquered worlds. Jake saw pieces of technology he did not recognize, strange art objects, and symbols from dozens of different civilizations. At the far end of the room, on a raised platform, sat Admiral Kekstar. The Admiral was the largest alien Jake had ever seen. He was almost 8 feet tall, with broad shoulders and arms that looked like they could crush steel. His blue skin was covered with intricate tattoos that told the story of his battles and victories. His golden eyes were cold and calculating. "Human, Jake Martinez," Admiral Kekstar said. His voice was deep and powerful, filling the enormous room. "You stand before the conqueror of 17 star systems. I have destroyed civilizations that threatened the peace of the galaxy. I have ended species that were too violent to be allowed to exist." Jake walked slowly toward the platform. Each step echoed in the huge room. He felt like an ant approaching a giant. "You helped our scout," the Admiral continued. "This surprised us. We have watched your species for many cycles. We have seen your wars, your cruelty, your violence toward your own kind. We concluded that humans were too dangerous to be allowed to develop space travel." Jake reached the bottom of the platform and looked up at the massive alien. "But I helped Zeph because he needed help," Jake said. "That's what people do." Admiral Kekstar leaned forward in his chair. "Some people, perhaps, but not all people. Not most people. We have records of your history, human. We know about your wars, your slavery, your genocide. We know how you treat those who are different from you." The Admiral stood up from his chair. He was even more intimidating when he was standing. "In all our conquests, we have rarely seen a species capable of such selfless compassion toward complete strangers. This puzzles us." Jake felt like he was being judged by a god. "Humans aren't perfect," he admitted. "We've done terrible things. But we're also capable of great kindness. We can learn. We can become better. Can you?" Admiral Kekstar asked. "Your species has had thousands of years to become better. Yet you still fight wars. You still harm each other. You still destroy your own planet." The Admiral walked down from his platform and stood directly in front of Jake. Jake had to tilt his head back to look into the alien's golden eyes. "I will give you a test, human Jake Martinez," the Admiral said. "Prove to me that your species deserves to survive. Show me that humans can be more than the violent creatures we have observed." "What kind of test?" Jake asked. Admiral Kekstar smiled, but it was not a friendly smile. "You will speak to my entire fleet, every warrior, every officer, every conquered species that serves us. You will convince them that humanity should be allowed to live." Jake felt his knees go weak. "How many is that?" 1 million warriors," the Admiral said, from dozens of different species. Many of them have seen their own worlds conquered or destroyed by species like yours. They will not be easy to convince. The Admiral walked back to his platform. But first, you must convince me. Tell me, human, why should we spare your species? Why should we take the risk that you might become a threat to the galaxy? Jake looked around the enormous room at all the trophies from destroyed civilizations. He thought about all the species that had stood where he was standing, trying to save their people. How many had failed? How many worlds had been destroyed because their representatives could not find the right words? Because we're not just our worst moments, Jake said finally. Yes, humans have done terrible things, but we've also done beautiful things. We create art and music. We explore and discover. We love and care for each other. Many species do these things, Admiral Kextar said. That does not make them less dangerous. Jake thought about Zeph, alone and hurt in the alley. When I found your scout, I didn't know he was important. I didn't know helping him would bring you here. I helped him because he needed help, and that's what you do when someone needs help. One act of kindness does not excuse centuries of violence, the Admiral said. No, Jake agreed, but it shows what we're capable of. It shows that we can be better than our history. Give us a chance to prove it. Admiral Kextar studied Jake for a long moment. Very well, he said finally. You will address my fleet. You will have one chance to convince them that humanity deserves to live. If you succeed, we will consider a trial period for your species. If you fail. The Admiral did not finish the sentence, but Jake understood. If he failed, human civilization would end. When? Jake asked. Now, Admiral Kextar said. My fleet is waiting to hear from you. Suddenly, the room around Jake changed. The walls became transparent, and Jake could see space around him. Hundreds of alien ships floated in the darkness, all of them filled with warriors waiting to judge. Humanity.Jake was about to give the most important speech in human history. The survival of his entire species depended on his words. He was just a mechanic from Phoenix, but somehow he had become humanity's last hope. Jake took a deep breath and prepared to speak for all of humankind. Jake stood in the center of the enormous room, surrounded by transparent walls that showed him the vastness of space. Hundreds of alien warships floated in the darkness around him. Inside each ship, he knew, were thousands of warriors waiting to hear what he had to say. Admiral Kextar's voice boomed through the room. Warriors of the Valderon Empire, conquered peoples of the 17 systems, hear the words of the human Jake Martinez. He speaks for his entire species. Judge his words carefully, for they will determine the fate of his world. Jake felt his heart beating so fast he thought it might burst. His mouth was dry, and his hands were shaking. He had never spoken to more than a few people at once. Now he was talking to over 1 million aliens who would decide whether humanity lived or died. Jake looked around at the alien ships surrounding him. Each one represented a different species, a different world. Some of those worlds no longer existed because their people had failed the same test. I don't know how to speak to armies, Jake began, his voice sounding small in the huge room. I'm just a mechanic. I fix cars for a living. I've never been important to anyone except my family and neighbors. Jake paused and took a deep breath. But 2 nights ago, I found one of your scouts in an alley behind a grocery store. He was hurt and scared and alone. His name was Zeph. Jake could see movement on some of the alien ships. The warriors were listening. Zeph was different from me in every way possible, Jake continued. Different skin, different eyes, from a different world. I had never seen anything like him before. I should have been scared. I should have run away or called the police. Jake's voice grew stronger as he spoke. But when I looked at Zeph, I didn't see an alien. I saw someone who needed help. And that's what you do when someone needs help. You help them. Admiral Kekstar was watching Jake carefully. The massive alien's golden eyes showed no emotion. I know you've been watching us, Jake said, looking around at all the ships. You've seen our wars, our violence, our mistakes. And you're right about all of it. Humans have done terrible things to each other and to our planet. Jake walked closer to the transparent walls so he could see the alien ships more clearly. But that's not the whole story of who we are. You've been watching our failures, but have you seen our successes? Jake thought about his sister Linda, about Mrs. Campbell, about all the ordinary people he knew who did good things every day. Every day, millions of humans help strangers without expecting anything in return, Jake said. Teachers spend their own money to buy supplies for poor children. Doctors work in dangerous places to help sick people. Firefighters run into burning buildings to save people they've never met. Jake's voice grew more confident. When disasters happen, humans from all over the world send help. When children are hungry, we feed them. When people are oppressed, we fight for their freedom. Yes, we fight wars, but we also fight against injustice. Admiral Kekstar stood up from his chair. Pretty words, human. But words are easy. Actions matter more. You're absolutely right, Jake agreed. So let me tell you about actions. When the tsunami hit Japan, people from every country sent help. When earthquakes destroy cities, humans dig through rubble with their bare hands to save strangers. When people are trapped in mines or caves, we spend weeks trying to rescue them, even when it's dangerous. Jake pointed toward Earth, even though he could not see it from where he stood. Right now, on my planet, there are humans taking care of sick children who aren't their own. There are humans protecting animals from extinction. There are humans cleaning up pollution and trying to save our planet. And yet you still have poverty, war, and hatred. Admiral Kekstar said yes, Jake admitted. We're not perfect. We're still learning. But Admiral, look at how far we've come. 100 years ago, humans kept other humans as slaves. Now slavery is illegal everywhere on our planet. We used to think women couldn't vote or work. Now they can do anything men can do. Jake walked back toward the center of the room. We used to think people with different skin colors were enemies. Now we work together, live together, love each other. We're still not perfect at it, but we're trying. A new voice spoke from one of the alien ships. It was harsh and angry. I am Commander Vexahan of the destroyed world Calros. My people said the same things you are saying now. We promised to be peaceful. But when we developed weapons, we used them against our neighbors. Your species will do the same. Jake felt a chill run down his spine. He was talking to someone whose entire world had been destroyed by the Volderons. I'm sorry about your world. Jake said, I can't imagine what that must have been like. Do not pity me, human, Commander Vexahan replied. Tell me why your species will be different from mine. Jake thought carefully before answering. Because we've already made that choice. Humans have weapons that could destroy our entire planet. We've had them for decades, but we haven't used them. When we realized how dangerous they were, we made agreements to control them. For now, another voice said from a different ship. But what happens when you spread to other worlds? What happens when you meet other species? Will you still be peaceful then? Jake realized this was the real test. These aliens were not just worried about Earth. They were worried about what humans might become if they were allowed to develop space travel. I don't know, Jake said honestly. I can't promise that every human will always do the right thing. But I can promise that many of us will try. And maybe that's enough. Admiral Kekstar walked down from his platform again. Many species have made similar promises. Most of them failed to keep those promises, but some didn't. Jake said. You have many different species in your empire. Some of them must have proven themselves, or you wouldn't have allowed them to survive. For the first time, Admiral Kekstar looked surprised. You are observant, human. Give us the same chance you gave them, Jake said. Don't judge us only by our worst moments. Judge us by our potential. Jake looked around at all the alien ships surrounding him. I helped Zeph because it was the right thing to do. I didn't know he was important. I didn't know it would save my world. I just saw someone who needed help. Jake's voice became stronger and more passionate. That's what humans do. We help. We care. We try to make things better. Yes, we fail sometimes. Yes, we make mistakes, but we keep trying. And if we give you this chance, Admiral Kekstar said, what will you do with it? Jake thought about everything he had learned in the past 2 days. We'll learn from you. We'll work with you. We'll prove that we can be part of something bigger than just our own planet. Jake looked directly at Admiral Kekstar. But we'll do it as partners, not as servants. We'll keep what makes us human while we become something more. The room became very quiet. Jake could hear his own heartbeat in the silence. He had said everything he could think of. Now it was up to the aliens to decide. Admiral Kekstar looked around at the ships surrounding them. Fleet commanders, you have heard the humans speak? What is your judgment? For several minutes, Jake heard voices speaking in alien languages he could not understand. The debate seemed to go on forever. Some voices sounded angry, others sounded curious. Jake tried to read the Admiral's expression, but the alien's face showed nothing. Finally, Admiral Kekstar raised his hand, and all the voices stopped. Fleet has reached a decision, the Admiral announced. By a narrow margin, we will grant humanity a trial period. 1 of your years to prove that your species can grow beyond its violent past. Jake felt his knees go weak with relief. Thank you, he said. Do not thank me yet, Admiral Kekstar warned. This is not a gift. This is a test. Selected humans will train with our scouts. They will learn about the galaxy and prove their worth through actions, not words. If humanity shows genuine progress toward becoming a peaceful, spacefaring civilization, we will welcome you as allies. The Admiral's expression became stern. But if you fail, if you prove that you are still too dangerous to exist, the consequences will be final. Do you understand? Jake nodded. I understand. Then choose, Admiral Kekstar said. Will you be one of the humans who trains with us? Will you leave your world and learn among the stars? Jake thought about his sister Linda, about his neighbors, about his simple life as a mechanic. Then he thought about Zeph and how a single act of kindness had led to this moment. Yes, Jake said. I'll go with you. Admiral Kekstar nodded. Then your journey begins now. As Jake looked out at the stars, through the transparent walls, he thought about how much his life had changed in just 2 days. He had gone from fixing cars to becoming humanity's representative to an alien empire. But in a way, it was the same thing he had always done. He saw someone who needed help, and he helped them. Now he would help his entire species prove they deserved a place among the stars. The small act of kindness he had shown to a lost alien in an alley had become the first step toward humanity's future in the galaxy. And Jake Martinez, the mechanic from Phoenix, would be there to help guide them on that journey.